Hi friends, and welcome to our channel where we talk about Microsoft Fabric and Power BI. In our previous video, we talked about Dataflows Gen2 in Fabric. In particular, I showed how to clean and transform finance data in Excel sheet and turn it into a normalized table, which can be stored in a database and analyzed using Power BI. And today I wanted to pick up where I left off and show you some more features that are available in the Power Query Editor as part of Dataflows Gen2. I'd like to reiterate that data flows are not just for importing data from one place to another, but it's a very powerful tool for data cleaning and transformation. As a use case for today's video, I chose a sample sales analysis report that you may commonly find in Excel. These types of sales reports are often aggregated by an entity or a person, location, or geography, and usually have a wide spreadsheet format in which columns are spread from left to right, and there can be a lot of columns. In this Excel file, I have the aggregated sales amount of each salesperson across different cities and over the period of 3 months. But this doesn't really matter because what's important here is a certain structure of your data and how your data is represented. Often these kinds of reports can have different formatting because different folks from different cities or departments will be emailing their sales reports, and somebody else will be putting these numbers into one master file. And of course, different people have their own preferred ways of spelling and formatting things. Someone uses capital letters right here, right? Others will use indentations or add, state codes after the city. So the formatting can be every which way possible. 10 years ago, I was an intern at a large company in Canada, and my important task, right, was to copy and paste numbers from a whole bunch of Excel reports into one master file. I mean, it was at the dawn of modern BI. Power BI was not even released at the time, but Power Query was. And still though, very few people used it. Everything was done in Excel. But truth be told, even in this day and age, a lot of companies are still doing their reporting and planning in Excel. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but I'm willing to bet that most small and medium-sized companies are still in Excel. So when you move from this kind of Excel manual reporting into a proper BI setup, you got to learn how to properly clean and transform these kinds of tables and put them into a database format. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to do that in Microsoft Fabric using a Dataflow Gen2. Let's go to my Fabric workspace now. All right, so I'm here in Fabric, and the first thing I'm going to do is to create a data flow and import my Excel file. I'll rename my data flow right away. Sample sales data from Excel. All right, and then I'll go ahead and do get data from another source because I'll be connecting to my OneDrive. View more sources. Oh, my bad. It will be an Excel workbook because I'll be importing an Excel workbook, but the location of that Excel workbook will be in OneDrive. My bad. And here's my file. I'll select it and connect to it. Click Next. You can see that I don't have any tables, right? Actual tables in the Excel file, so I will choose the entire sheet of my data, right? This isn't really a proper table. I mean, in the Excel world, we will still call it, table, but it's not a real table in a database sense. It's not a normalized table. All of this data will be loaded, and I will see the Power Query Editor. All right, I will rename my query right away. Okay, so here's my data. This is not a table, right? This is not a properly formatted table. It's not normalized. I basically just have a sheet of Excel with a bunch of data in it. And it's formatted in different ways, right? In some places, I have the names spelled with capital letters. I have spaces in between the person's name and then the ID. In some places, I have the city name and then the state code. And then in other places, I don't. I have a lot of null values here. I have indentations, so formatting is very different everywhere. What I'm going to do here using a Dataflow Gen2, using the Power Query in the cloud, is to clean and transform this data to turn it into a proper table in the database format. And then I'm going to put this table into a into a warehouse. But it doesn't matter where I put it in Fabric. So first thing I'm going to do is to separate. You can see that in column 1, I have sales, and then I have colon, and then I have a date. So what I can do, right, is I want to create a separate column for my dates. So what I will do is I will right click, and then I will choose a feature called split column by delimiter. And the delimiter is going to be colon, and then I'll click OK. And the Power Query is going to separate this column into 2 separate columns. So here I have 2 separate columns. Then I will remove these indentations. I'll go back to the column 1, right click again. I'll find the feature called transform, and then search for a function called trim. And trim will remove all the empty spaces before and after a text string. Now, when you start getting into a database mindset, this becomes important because you can have 2 identical looking records. Let me show you an example, right? So here I have the city, and then I have Vancouver, right? Properly formatted, and then I have Vancouver space, and then I have another record for Vancouver, and then I have Toronto. And then let's say I have sales, and then I got 10, 10, 10, and then I got 20. And then if I want to do the sum of the city, so I'll be using the sum with formula, the range is going to be here. Criteria, I'm searching for Vancouver, right? So I'm summing record called Vancouver. And then the range is going to be this. And so I'm expecting to see 30, right? 10 plus 10 plus 10. But I'm going to see 20. I'm going to see 20 because one of my records here actually has 2 extra spaces. And when I remove that, it's going to be 30. For the human eye, it's the same thing, but in analytics, these 2 records are distinct. So you can easily get wrong numbers because of these little spaces. That's why I recommend always trimming your data, right? Using these functions, because that way you make sure that you don't have no extra spaces before or after the text. All right, we'll continue with formatting, and the next thing I want to do is to have a proper spelling of names. These are all capital letters, right? Somebody sent me files where the names and the cities are all in capital letters. I want to have them in normal formatting with each word starting with the capital letter. So I'll right click, I'll search for transform column, and then I will choose the feature called capitalize each word. And that's going to fix it. Emily Johnson and Michael Smith and all these names now will be spelled properly. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I will remove all of these null values. Well, not all of them, right? I cannot remove sales for now because if I removed this row, then I'm going to lose some of my dates. I'm not going to do that for now, right? Just yet. Instead, what I will do, I will remove these nulls right here. And I will also remove sales report. And I can also remove the totals. Because the totals can be calculated later using measures. And sales report is just text that I don't really need. So I will select the filter button and filter out null and filter out totals, sales report, and sales. And salesperson, sorry. And this is going to filter out all of the unnecessary data from this sheet. Yeah, I don't need name either. So I'm going to go back and filter out the name. So then come to the second column, go to the transform tab, and then use the feature called fill down to fill all of the dates. No, I made a mistake. Apologies. I deleted the other dates that I shouldn't have deleted. I should have kept these dates for February and March. So if you made a mistake, Power Query gives you an excellent opportunity just to kind of go back. You can X out and delete some of the steps that you took. And that way you're going to go back to one of the previous steps and then you can start over. Sorry, it was my bad. So I'm going to X out. I'll go a few steps back and now I can stay here. Then I will do fill down. And now I'm going to fill down all of these nulls by January because this is January data. And then these nulls are going to become February, right? And these nulls will become March. So I'm going to do fill down. There we go. And what I'm going to do for now is just remove nulls. Now as the next step, I need to have the names of my cities, Houston and Los Angeles, etc. I want these cities to be in first row. So that way, if they will be in the first row, I can use the feature called use first rows as headers, and then these cities will become column headers. Once the names of the cities become column headers, I can use the function transpose to pivot these columns and stack them up all in one column, which I can then name city. Let me do this. For that, I need to remove the current first row. That has a whole bunch of nulls. I can do that by filtering out the row sales from the first column. Now I should have the row called salesperson and then the date and the city in row number 1. Now I can go to the home tab and then use first rows as headers. All right? So this can be renamed right away as a date. And now what I can do, I can select these two columns, right click, and then I can do unpivot other columns. This will pivot all the columns except the first two columns. As a result, I will have all values that are in rows stacked up in columns in the proper table format. So I can go ahead and do city. I can call this sales amount. Salesperson, I can leave that as is. It's not a problem. So if I scroll down here, I can see some inconsistencies, right? I already have cities, but this is duplicate now. If I needed a separate column for state, I could use the create custom column feature and use the logic to match the city with the state. But in this example, I will not be doing this. We'll just work with the city. What I will do is I will remove sales representative in totals. I don't need totals either. And these rows will be filtered out. Let me see if I have any other errors in here. Yeah, I have another thing here for name. I don't need name either. So I can filter out the name. And that should be it. That should be it. Now my table looks good. The only other thing is here I have the name of a person / the employee ID. In my example, the name of a person and their ID are separated by one delimiter, that is a slash. This text string can be easily separated using the split column feature. Choose split column by delimiter. It's a custom, this sign right here. And Power Query is going to understand and recognize what I want to do, and it will separate this column into two separate columns separated by a delimiter. It's all separated now. The only thing I don't like is I had spaces in here. So what I will do is I will come here and then do trim because there might be spaces. Remember one of those little tables, I think it was from March, it had the name space and then slash and then space. So to make sure that I have all of the records clean, I will use the trim feature again. Another little thing I'm seeing here is that Power Query automatically assumed that the IDs were numbers. This happens a lot. Power Query tries to guess and make your life easier, but not this time, because IDs should be text, not actual numbers. That's because I do not want to aggregate the IDs by mistake. So I will take a step back and change the data type to text. And then I'll do insert, replace. It should have the zeros, right? It will turn it into a text. And these IDs cannot be aggregated. Everything looks good, right? The city is obviously the text. Sales amount is decimal. And all I need to do is to rename my columns. I'll change this to employee ID, and then this column here will be salesperson. I'll remove 1 right here. All right, now we got our table ready. It is now formatted in a way that it can be stored in a database and analyzed using BI tools. We can now upload it into a lakehouse or warehouse in Microsoft Fabric and start building reports as needed. The great thing about Dataflows Gen2 is that it remembers all the steps taken to clean and transform data. If you have another Excel file with new data but with the same structure, you can change the data source and the data flow will provide you the new data right away. A common scenario is to use a folder as a source, and when you put a new file into that folder and refresh the data flow, you will get your data updated real time. Please watch one of my previous videos in which I showed how to connect to a SharePoint folder and grab data from there. Alright, that will be it for today. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Thanks a lot.